Nkuba bwetonnya okuvaayo obeera weetaaga lyato okubeera waneeno nammwenze kyali kirooto nawandikanga rhymes zange mwana ku tadooba kyali wange pitek naŋŋamba nti maani toloba luli balimu olifuna rap hit kyali wange kiriba kati raba yenzaali ku MTV ne Jamagenda byenkola kazindaalo bakyali babitenda nemedde ku nsonga kati ninga Andrew Mwenda manyi gyenva tera manyi gyengenda nzijukira baŋŋamba ngambu no GNL tomalaako ne kati malako bakyali nzanya kyenda emiziki gyenkuba kati bagigulirira mu byenda manyi gyenva ate era manyi gyengenda. So basically I wrote that verse or that song as affirmation for my dreams and affirmation for my visions. It begins with telling a story of where this young man is from. I wanted people to visualize and see themselves through my story. I wanted the music to be very, very relatable. Ntibanzalira mu ghetto awatali muto. I wanted people to draw an image of a person who was born like maybe on a dirty ghetto mattress. You get me? I wanted people to go back to the simplicity of that life, and the people who had never lived such a life, I wanted to invite them into who they were listening to or who they were going to be listening to, painting the picture of what the album was to become. So banzalira mu ghetto awatali muto GNL Zamba ningo mwana Yesu Kristo. You see the correlation that usually the people who serve societies, right? Until Yesu bamuzalira mu kibaya in a crowd. The king was born in a crowd. He wasn't born in a palace. So I was trying to correlate my journey, my vision, my purpose in the very lyrics that Nalin ntandise okukuba. And the whole verse paints a picture of determination, having a vision, purpose, and also how to have like a very hard-headed mentality if you're going to go for your dreams. Because I say, bangantino simalako. That means some people used to doubt me, and that was a fact. There's some people used to tell me I had to like take more years in the trenches before I recorded an album. It was very daring. Some people told me I needed to still work on a few things, work on this, but I always felt ready, and it speaks about the importance of listening to the voice from within. So I wrote this song when I knew, matter of fact, I didn't know I was ready, but I felt I was ready. And I trusted my inner voice to lead me there. So this song was more of writing affirmations of what the journey was going to be. And thank God, like, I think when you believe in yourself, as the axiom goes, things happen. The universe conspires and makes things happen for you. And that's what happened to me with this song, as it became Uganda's groundbreaking song commercially, and also connected ghetto to ghetto, city to city, story to story, aspiration for aspiration. You know, energies were matched and magic happened. So KOYIKOYI, I'm thankful to our universe for that one. This is amazing. It feels forest fresh with a very wonderful team. If you don't know the voice and the voice of the gentleman behind the microphone, it's his greatness, the creature from the nebula of Zambaland. You get me? And I'm here in the forest. It's green, it's fresh. The energy is amazing, and I'm here to decode some of my lyrics for some of my most supportive and daring fans and my dearest out there. And see if an emily one and Somba later. We here. One. So tutandikirewa. I think tutandikire from the very beginning. From the very beginning, right? So from the very beginning, God said, let there be light, right? And most people think that when he said, let there be light, that it was light that came first. They forget that the sound came first. So just like for GNL as well, the sound came first. Before people put a face to the voice, before all of the fame, before the adoration, before all of the beautiful women putting my poster in their rooms, you know, before becoming an inspiration to some people, which I really feel honored to be in that position. Before all of that, there was this very young, timid, afraid young man with a dream. That was me, you get me? I remember I used to go to people, all places where rappers were performing, and I never had the guts to go to stage. Much as I really loved the craft and I could sing Nas lyrics from top to bottom, I knew Gangsta's Paradise by the time I was in P7. You know, I would dance to Return of the Mac. You know, I had like all this character, but it was all buried within me. Until one time, a gentleman called P-Tech had me freestyle, and he said, "Gwe, bulijo, you're this good." He gave me, I'm taking you to stage with me. So that very, very young, timid young man took a time going through the furnace, suffering for the vision, suffering for the craft, basically putting in years to be accepted, studying the game and being a student of the game until we came to the album KOYIKOYI. By the time we came to the album KOYIKOYI, for me it was an epiphany, right? It was an epiphany that I've discovered it. In order for me to be relatable with the people I'm trying to rap to, right? It has to be something which is undeniably theirs, undeniably them, and I just have to show them that whatever they were always looking for was already inside them. And when I discovered that, I knew that it had to be the language first. Whether it was slang, whether it was kukwana, whether it was the way people spoke, the way people danced, that language, that Kampala vibe, that East African spirit that's always embedded in people. So once I knew that I had that, I began looking for the music. Where do we have all our commonality? Where do people come and meet? I went back to our traditions, our ancestors, and I discovered a very wonderful chant. You say "Koi Koi" and the people reply, "What?" Ndia. And once I knew I had the chorus, I just began working backwards, just like a scientist deconstructing something. And it's beautiful that this is called Decoded, and I want to do that as the very, very first song, the very, very first verse. So here we are. Koi Koi? Yeah. Yes. The album is called Riddles of Life. The second verse goes like, "Enensi tulinga abanyiga oluwazi okulugyamu amazzi. Mpita mu Kampala ndaba bangi batunula ngaazi. Abavubuka ennaku zino ebizibu bibagobanga basezi. Bwe mbeera nga nkuba rhyme nange oluusi ndaba abachwezi. Naye ne nfuna hope nga feesi yange njiraba eri ku mwezi. Muvubuka lemerako obanga Sylvester ne Abrahams. Lemerako ng'onoonya answer to the riddle of KOYIKOYI. Wadde ng'obulamu bwokyanga effumbiro lya sitaani. Wadde ng'olinga yeetisse enjovu ttaano ku minzaani nga n'obulamu bukusalanga biso by'abasulutaani. KOYIKOYI oteekwa okubeera ne pulaani. Nze njukira mwaka gwali 2025. Big Brother we yachakira wano ne Gaitano. Twali ku East Africa TV mwana channel 5. Wenasooka okukuba rap mu lulimi olwa wano. Shadrack Nampita, Mother Africa neba All Star. Tuliddewo award, twalina squad. Na mukwandula ebigambo tubeeranga basirikale mu Baghdad. GNL kati nkomyewo album bagiyita KOYIKOYI njijje ku writing pad. I love that verse. Njagala nnyo. Because in the order of how I wrote the verses, that was supposed to be either verse number 1 or it was supposed to be the end. So the way that I usually write my lyrics, bwembanga manyi what the chorus is going to be, I usually just begin piecing things together and playing with them, just like a person playing with a puzzle. I play with sentences and words that way. I play with verses that way. I play with the arrangement of albums that way until I know and I feel it in my spirit that it couldn't be any other way except this way, right? So a album Jijaku writing part, that could have been the very first verse, but Banzalira mu ghetto was fit that space better, right? So that's where we were. I was painting a Kampala picture. Ngambabuli de Jenvude. Now verse number 2 is painting the picture of my dreams. Mbera onenda baba chwezi. That means ancestors visit me. You get me? The greatest of the ancestors that have ever lived visit me in my visions. Even when I'm talking to people about my dreams, they are encouraging me to go on. There's a lot of spirituality buried within these lyrics. I remember Sylvester and Abrahams had just put out a song called Lemerako, which I always thought was very, very encouraging. That's why they also feature in that verse. Byokolanga biganye Lemerako. And by that time, for me, byenkola ddala ddala byali biganye. You get me? Yeah, that's verse number 2. Do you have any questions about the verse before we move on to the next one? KOYIKOYI, yeah, and the album is called Riddles of Life because traditionally, when people are riddling, right, okukotia, we call it okukotia. Some people call it okwivuga, right? It's like you're posing a question to a community of people, and whoever wins it has a reward. So here it was Riddles of Life, life asking us, what are you going to eat today? How are you going to pay your rent? So all these questions, a young man growing up in Kampala, impoverished, had to find an answer. Sugemi, if you listen to the intro of the album, leave alone. I think some of my fans have never even heard the real intro to KOYIKOYI. Some people just know the song. They don't know that the song actually has an intro that paints the prelude or the whole picture of the whole album. Around the fireplace, I remember the treasure times with my grandmother. My inspiration comes from my grandmother. Many people don't know that, but my Jaja was one of the greatest storytellers. Actually, the one who had an impact on my life. Because yakubuliranga story yezike, n'ateekamu ne actions before VJ Jingo ng'alina soundtrack ye ezike ne lijja ba. So imagine ezike liyita mu kibira nga ly'amaanyi. She put action, she showed you the stars, told you about your ancestry, told you about where you are, told what your dad was like when he was young. So she painted this picture that by the time I was writing my very, very first album, her voice was like really present in my life. She wasn't there with me, but I would remember it like from the memories of how she told stories. So even in telling the KOYIKOYI story in the intro, if you go back and listen to the album version, I'm telling a story of how I remember the treasure times with my grandmother, my cousins, uncles, and the young ones, and which is also how most people in the past times really met and reflected. The album's purpose was to create the gap between tradition and modernity, the gap between old people and young people. And the hip-hop in Uganda was failing to develop simply because people were so removed from what their reality was. They were emulating New Yorkers, they were emulating South Africans, but they had forgotten that rap was here way before, like people used to beat on top of a pot to create a bass, and then a poet would stand up and tell a story. But before he tells a story, he tells you about how great he is, how his grandfather used to cook with rocks, Like there was a little bit of exaggeration, but that's the beauty of African storytelling, that you have to, your greatness, the greatness of your name, right? Is fathered by those ones who are present. But Jaja speak through you. So, yeah, that was the bridge. KOYIKOYI, here we are. Shout outs to everybody from Baboon Forest, everyone who's watching. Remember to subscribe. Remember to follow all of our channels. Ask the questions that you would like me to dive into and dissect. Share some of your memories that you have with these songs. I would like to know how these songs made you feel. What happened? When was the first time you heard these lyrics, and what lyric that you relate to the most? So subscribe and follow the story here on GNLZamba.com and on baboonforest.com. When kuna platforms is a follow, subscribe, and remember to click that notification button as well. Not to forget our sponsors, abatuwaka coffee, abatuwa amazzi n'ebigenderako byonna. Link Mubayo Waneno. Yeah, here we are. Decoded, Baboon Forest Entertainment, and I'm your boy, GNL Zamba. His greatness, the legend of Zamba. Nsiya fene miliduano. Ani aluleta. Okay. I think this is one of the masses. Somebody likes the word masses. The masses really, really loved this third verse of KOYIKOYI because it was comical, it was funny that we were laughing at ourselves, but it was also painting a picture of the struggle of the artist in this industry that we're in. Not just the artist, but the creative. And I'm trying to make the crowd relate to, see behind the curtain of what goes on as people are crafting their dreams. And here I wanted to use a female picture. I wanted to use a picture of a father, and I also wanted to use the picture of an artist whose show has flopped. Many people don't know that pain, you know? But a show flopping makes you doubt yourself like 1,000 times, you know? And it is the same pain I think so many other people feel, right? But they would not have the words to it. And a show can flop, then they have a press conference, they explain it was the promoter, they can say, you know what, I didn't promote as I was supposed to. But imagine a person who has made a loss nti musajja wattu abadde alimye ennyaanya, but the whole fuso, as he was taking it to market, all those months that he was growing these things, right? As he was taking it to market, the fuso poured, oh, there was an accident. You don't know that pain. So I really wanted to draw the parallels and the connecting lines to paint this picture of KOYIKOYI, that we are all together as a society in this beautiful struggle of trying to make it. As the world is asking us the riddle of life, or nalyachi, or zakochi, we're all trying to figure out this puzzle called life. This song KOYIKOYI is actually for bavubuka, for the hustlers, for people who are trying to figure out what their next step is. And there's a quote by Martin Luther, which I'm going to butcher and paraphrase, but he says, faith is taking the first step even when you can't see the whole staircase. You don't even know there's a staircase, right? And that's a very, very big story. So this very third verse captures that, and it paints the picture. I used to sit in a bar, Ground Zero, back in the day when I was at university. And this bar was in Wandegea. And I used to enter this bar, which was one of the craziest, busiest bars next to campus. And there would be reggae night, there would be hip-hop night, there would be whatever night. And I used to just come through. If times were good, I would get a beer, right? And then I would get a napkin or a piece of paper and begin writing in a bar. Now, this used to puzzle so many people. Rush to genze muchifojo sobola okuwandikira lyrics. Why can't you go to a quiet place where you can think, where you can do what? Why come to a bar and look miserable while you're writing lyrics? People are watching soccer, there's music playing, people are chanting, singing along to songs. But for me, I think I thrive best in chaos. Does that make sense? That even when I was reading for my exams, I would go to the noisy place so that I could block out everything. Does that make sense? Exactly. So even in a bar, I would go to a bar and everything becomes the background to what I'm writing, right? And I would get lost in my world. I would just see a woman seated on the other side of the band. I'm like, this woman today, she has come to sell her body. You get me? Like you'd see it, right? But she's trying so hard to look good. And I would go off of that one line and create a whole story. So Ground Zero, that's where I used to go, and Ground Zero and so many other bars like Stakeout, bars like Tio. Cindy Mukade, now that I'm mentioning these bars, I realize I'm growing old as well. You get me? But beauty, there's beauty in age and wisdom. So the third verse goes, Walolabyeko omusajja omukulu ng'akaaba amaziga. Have you ever seen a grown man cry? N'agezaako okuseka nga naye ennaku emunyiga, and he tries to laugh but there's so much pain. Just imagine that. N'agezaako okuseka nga naye ennaku emunyiga. Wali olabyeko banene ba R&B singer bw'afaanana ng'entebe enkalu ku lunaku lwa launchinga. Have you ever seen the look of an R&B singer? The look that he has when he's tried to, when the show has flopped. He expected all those people and nobody came to see. You get me? So I'm painting all these pictures of pain. Then I'm like, oyo sekse gola papa muyita nanshinga. Bomulaba mubala golowooza achiringa. Kumbe nga mwana muwala mubiri gwe gwadiringa. Okulaba nti nafunira abaana b'obulamu obusinga. But I was thinking back to the woman, eyetunda, okitegera, nanshinga ngali mu bbaala. For you just looking at a good-looking girl, you probably going to come and lay some game. But she's thinking about the kids that she left at home. Okiraba, ayambadde akakondo, ataddeko biwiivu, yeekubye makeup. She's trying to all ways to catch a big fish that night so that the babies can eat. So that's the third verse of KOYIKOYI. Let me know what your favorite line from that verse is, and let the discussion continue. And CFNM Ridwano, it's your boy GNL Zamba right here on Baboon Forest Network. And this is Decoded, going through our lyrics, telling the stories behind the lyrics.